Okay, let's dive in. We're cracking open a really significant report today. It's from the EU Science Hub.
That's right, their Generative AI Outlook report, JRC 142598, published just this year, 2025.
And it's pretty comprehensive, looking at generative AI, the tech, where it stands, its impacts.
Exactly. Technology, society, policy, it covers a lot of ground.
So our mission here for this deep dive is basically to pull out the really key insights for you, the important bits.
Yeah, help cut through the noise, understand the opportunities, the challenges, all the complexities of Gen AI as it is right now.
Because it touches everything, right?
Yeah.
Tech evolution, the economy, how society's changing, even the regulations that are trying to keep up.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating picture.
So let's start with the basics. The report talks about how quickly Gen AI went from being, well, niche to everywhere.
Yeah.
How does it frame that rapid rise?
Well, it points to some really pivotal moments. Obviously, ChatGPT and OpenAI exploding onto the scene in early 2023. That was huge.
That really felt like a turning point, didn't it? The report even calls it a revolution for the tech industry.
It does, and that visibility just spurred massive investment almost immediately. You had Microsoft jumping in with OpenAI, Google rushing to integrate Gen AI.
Right, and then GPT-4 came out in March 23, another big technical leap.
A huge leap, but the report notes that's also when the concerns really sharpened, bias, security.
And jobs, the
Yeah.
big one everyone worries about, job displacement.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The report flags predictions like Goldman Sachs suggesting Gen AI could automate 300 million jobs globally.
300 million, wow. That really puts the potential scale of disruption into perspective.
It really does, and it underlines why those regulatory talks started so early. The G7 nations were already discussing AI regulations around then, focusing on trustworthy AI.
So the rules discussion was happening almost side by side with the tech breakthroughs.
Pretty much, and it hasn't slowed down. The report covered more recent stuff, too. GPT-4o launching, Google pushing Gen AI into search, TikTok labeling AI content.
And the EU working on ways to spot errors in LLMs as companies use them more.
Yeah, it's this constant cycle of development and response.
So where does the report see the EU in all this, in this global race?
Well, it identifies a key strength, the EU's research environment. We're second globally in Gen AI publications, apparently. That's a solid base.
Okay, strong science. Sounds like a good starting point.
It is, but the report is also pretty clear about the challenges: funding, investment, especially compared to the U.S.
Oh, venture capital, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Particularly for Gen AI startups. The research is there, but turning it into big commercial successes, that's harder without that massive investment flow.
Right, strong on ideas and ethics maybe, but needs more financial fuel. Okay, so moving from that big picture, the report gets into the foundations, right? Data, infrastructure, models.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts. And it really hammers home that data is the lifeblood of Gen AI. You absolutely need high-quality, diverse data sets.
The better the data, the better the AI. Is that the idea?
Fundamentally, yes. Which immediately brings up bias, of course. Maybe impossible to eliminate completely, but the report stresses being aware of it, measuring it.
Okay. And what about this issue of training AI on other AI's output?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. The report cites research like Shumailov et al. From 2024, showing this can lead to what they call model collapse.
Collapse. What does that mean in practice?
It means performance degrades. The model gets progressively worse, especially at representing minority groups or making complex predictions, like for industry. It's because the data distribution shifts over time.
And it's hard to even tell if content is AI generated to begin with.
That's another layer of the problem, yeah. Identifying it is a real challenge.
Okay, so data is one pillar. Then there's the computing power needed. Infrastructure.
Massive. The report is clear. Gen AI needs huge computational resources, and that means huge energy demands. That's flagged as a critical issue.
We hear a lot about data centers. How does the EU stack up, computationally speaking?
The comparison is pretty stark, actually. The EU has around 50 of the top 500 AI supercomputers. The US, 134. China, over 200.
Okay, so a noticeable gap there.
But the performance gap is even wider. The report mentions systems like the XAI Colossus in the U.S. planning up to 200,000 chips. That's potentially more chips in one system than the entire EU has across all its top supercomputers combined.
Wow. That's a staggering difference. Closing that gap requires enormous investment, surely.
Absolutely. And finally, within this foundation section, it touches on the models themselves, open source versus proprietary.
Right, the different approaches.
Yeah, open source, like from EU companies Mistral AI or Lighten, they can boost innovation, transparency. Proprietary models like OpenAI's GPTs or Google's Gemini offer support, maybe unique features, but you don't really see inside the box. Different trade-offs.
Got it. Okay, let's pivot from the foundations to, well, the cutting edge. What emerging tech trends does the report see shaping the future?
It highlights 4 key ones. First up is agentic AI.
Agentic AI, what's that exactly?
Think systems that don't just respond, but can make autonomous decisions, take initiative, learn. They have a kind of computational agency.
So not just an assistant, but something that could, like, manage tasks on its own.
Exactly. Things like Microsoft's Agent Store or research into browser agents. But this immediately throws up huge policy questions.
Like what?
Well, accountability, for starters. If an agent messes up, who's responsible? How do you define employee? Who owns what the agent creates? How do humans even interact safely with these things?
Yeah, those are fundamental questions. Big ones. Okay, what's the second trend?
Multimodal AI, integrating different data types, text, image, audio, maybe even touch or smell eventually.
We're seeing that already with things like GPT-4o, right?
Exactly. And GPT-5 is expected to push this further. Powerful stuff, but it also amps up the risks.
How so?
Well, it could potentially magnify biases from different data sources, make misinformation even more convincing, use more energy, and potentially leave languages or modalities with less data behind.
More power, more problems, potentially. Got it. Trend number 3.
Advanced AI reasoning. This is about AI getting better at simulating complex, human-like logic, maybe even slowing down its process to improve quality. Think large concept models, AI stem cell tech.
Sounds sophisticated. What's the risk there?
The report flags human technical skills erosion.
Ah, the idea that we might lose skills if we rely too much on AI for thinking.
Precisely, which makes AI literacy crucial, not just using it, but understanding its limits. The report mentions things like the draft EOECD AI literacy framework for schools.
Makes sense. Know how to work with it, not just delegate everything.
Yeah.
And the last trend.
Explicability, or XAI. Basically, the need for AI to explain why it made a decision.
Right, the black box problem.
Exactly. This is vital for trust, especially in high-stakes areas, security, healthcare, finance. You need to understand the reasoning. The report touches on methods for this and links it to trustworthy AI overall, making sure systems are lawful, ethical, robust. It mentions tools like Kyrie for risk assessment.
Trust is key, absolutely. Knowing the why is essential. Okay, let's shift gears. The economy. How's Gen AI hitting industries and jobs?
The report calls it a major catalyst. It's really shaking up industries, enabling new business models all across the EU.
And not just tech, right?
Yeah.
Affecting traditional sectors too.
Definitely. Manufacturing, for instance. Smart production, predictive maintenance, often using bits of that agentic AI we mentioned.
But is everyone ready for this?
That's a key point. The report talks about digital maturity. SMEs, the smaller businesses, often lag behind larger companies. They might lack resources, data management capabilities.
So there's a readiness gap.
Yeah, and you need that human-centric approach too, skills, empowering people. It's not just about plugging in the tech.
What about the market for conversational AI itself? Chatbots and the like.
It's highly concentrated, according to the report. For apps, the top 5 get 82% of usage, and ChatGPT alone has 72%.
Wow, dominant.
And for websites, it's even more concentrated. Top 5 firms get 92% of unique EU visitors. Germany leads usage, interestingly, though players differ a bit between apps and web.
So a few big players are really shaping that experience right now. What about the impact on jobs, the workforce? Which roles are most exposed?
The report points to occupations like electrotechnology engineers, software developers, teachers, office clerks, secretaries.
Teachers, more exposed than most other workers. That seems surprising to some.
Yeah, the report says teachers show higher exposure than 90% of workers analyzed. It seems linked to tasks AI is getting good at things related to ideas, like comprehension, expression, searching, attention.
Okay, which brings us straight to the skills gap, doesn't it?
Absolutely, the need to adapt. The report highlights the EU's digital skills gap. The target is 80% with basic digital skills by 2030, but in 2023 it was only 56%.
Still a long way to go on the basics.
And there are targets for reducing low achievers in computer literacy too. On the higher education front, though, the EU seems strong in the proportion of AIG AI master's degrees offered compared to the total.
Interesting. So leadership in the penetration rate of these programs, even if overall investment lags.
Yeah, it notes the U.S. seems to be shifting its focus more sharply towards Gen AI-specific programs recently.
Okay, let's broaden out again. Societal impacts. Misinformation comes up a lot.
Huge concern. Gen AI can churn out convincing fakes so fast, debunking just can't keep up.
And technical fixes like watermarks aren't the whole answer.
Necessary, the report says, but not sufficient. The most effective defense is media and AI literacy. For everyone, citizens, policymakers. Knowing how to spot fakes, think critically.
Makes sense. And how is the public conversation around AI described?
Often polarized. You get the utopian hype versus the dystopian doom-mongering. That shapes how people see it.
Yeah, that rings true. What about the digital commons, things like Wikipedia?
This is crucial. Open content, open licenses, vital for training AI. But the report warns Gen AI puts these commons at risk.
How?
Well, through enclosure, maybe restricting access after scraping data, discouraging contributions if people just use closed AI, pollution AI adding errors back into shared databases, plus the financial strain on hosting organizations. It calls it a consent in crisis.
So AI could undermine the very resources it depends on. That's a paradox.
A significant one. The report suggests two paths: thriving with support or collapse. Then there's the environmental impact.
Right, the energy use we touched on.
It's massive. High energy consumption, emissions, water for cooling, minerals for hardware. Data center power demand could soar maybe 50% increase in US-Europe by 2027, potentially over 100% by 2030.
That's enormous growth.
And AI companies are looking at nuclear or gas power investments just to cope. Plus e-waste from short hardware life cycles, potentially millions of tons.
Grim. But is there a positive side?
Yeah.
Can AI help the environment?
The report acknowledges that potential. Yes. AI for climate mitigation, tracking pollution, optimizing energy, designing efficient systems, but
Implementation is the hard part.
exactly, interoperability, skills, infrastructure gaps. It does mention positive trends too, like sustainable hardware edge AI, neuromorphic chips.
Okay. Let's talk about children, a specific section on their rights.
Very important, as kids are often early adopters. Their opportunities, education, creativity, maybe mental health support via trusted systems
But the risks.
are heavily emphasized. Deceptive manipulation, which the AI Act prohibits, susceptibility to misinformation, harmful content, like CSAM, and risks from AI companions, impersonation, deception, messing with emotional development.
That's deeply concerning.
It is. The report links it to the Digital Services Act's rules on protecting minors. It points to the severe trauma from non-consensual deepfakes, citing studies and real cases like that horrific one in Spain involving teenage girls.
Just awful. Shows the real-world harm.
Absolutely. And it connects to broader mental health risks, emotional dependency on AI companions, the trauma of deepfakes, harassment. Finally, this section mentions behavioral insights.
How AI plays on our psychologies.
Yeah. The potential for AI to exploit our biases, but also maybe the potential for AI to help overcome human biases in decision-making, like for judges or doctors. Understanding the interaction is key.
Fascinating. Okay, so how do we manage all this? The rules. Regulation. The EU AI Act is central, right?
It is. The report outlines its risk tiers. Unacceptable risk practices like manipulation linked to Gen AI are banned. High-risk systems, potentially some Gen AI uses, face strict rules.
And those chatbots.
Often limited risk, needs transparency, tell people it's AI, label-generated content. Then minimal risk for general-purpose AI models themselves.
So trying to match the rules to the potential harm. What about the Digital Services Act?
Also key. It tackles systemic risks on big platforms. The report says the Commission's been using it for enforcement actions focused on Gen AI risks since late 2023.
And privacy. GDPR must be constantly relevant here.
Absolutely. Throughout the whole life cycle. Big debates around the legality of training on massive data sets using legitimate interest, plus the literacy challenge for users and the black box effect, not knowing how systems truly work.
Hard to protect privacy without transparency.
Yeah.
Copyright. That's a minefield right now.
A huge one. The report dives into the EU's text and data mining TDM exceptions. Article 3 for research, Article 4 allows broader TDM, but with an opt-out.
And making that opt-out actually work is the problem.
That's a major challenge. What counts as machine readable is a note in terms of service enough. Robots.txt is limited. There are efforts, like the AIPREF group, to create better technical ways for creators to say no TDM or specifically no generative AI training.
More granular control.
Trying to get there. But there's no harmonization across the EU yet. Courts differ. Plus, big lawsuits globally. Getty, NYT in the US, Gima versus OpenAI Suno AI in Germany, publishers versus Meta in France.
Clear signs of conflict and uncertainty.
Definitely. The report stresses the need to fairly compensate creators whose work trains these models. Licensing, collective bargaining are mentioned as possibilities, though complex. And it nods to broader EU data laws aiming to improve data sharing, which helps Gen AI, too.
Right. Getting the data infrastructure right is foundational. Okay, the report also did some sector-specific dives. Healthcare.
Big potential EHRs, drug discovery, personalized medicine, efficiency, maybe even equity if bias is tackled. The European health data space could help provide broader data.
But the risks are high, too.
Very high.
Right.
Bias perpetuating inequities. Clinician deskilling, hallucinations, it's not ready for routine diagnosis in many cases, and major cybersecurity risks with patient data.
Education. We mentioned literacy.
Called essential, needs curriculum updates, maybe education-specific AIs, and crucially, training educators on data use, privacy, bias, access. Vocational training is key, too, for workforce changes.
And science itself.
Gen AI is reshaping research, helping with hypotheses, automating experiments, enhancing efficiency and creativity. But needs careful integration to maintain integrity, avoid reinforcing bias.
Cybersecurity. You said a double-edged sword.
Exactly. Helps defenders automate threat detection. Vulnerability testing mentions Pentest GPT. But
Yeah, helps attackers, too.
yeah, the natural language interface lowers the bar for sophisticated attacks, makes it easier for non-experts. The report calls for more research on human-AI interaction risks here, over-trusting AI, anthropomorphizing it.
And finally, the public sector.
It's starting to adopt Gen AI, about 100 cases identified, developing guidelines on responsible use, avoiding sensitive data, checking outputs. National efforts focus on open source, language-specific models, too, for diversity and security.
Okay, that covers a huge amount from the report. So if we pull it all together, what's the main takeaway?
I think the core message is clear. Generative AI is incredibly powerful, it's evolving fast, and it offers enormous opportunities everywhere.
But, and it's a big but, those opportunities come hand in hand with really significant complex challenges.
Exactly. Challenges for the technology itself, for the economy, for society as a whole. The report keeps coming back to the need for smart, informed policy, for ongoing skills development, and for really careful thinking about ethics and risks.
Risks like bias, privacy concerns, misinformation, the environmental cost, and how it affects vulnerable groups, especially children.
It's definitely not just a tech issue. It's societal, it's regulatory, and it needs everyone involved to be proactive.
This report really maps out the current landscape, the potential, and the pitfalls. And thinking about how fast things are moving and how interconnected all these impacts are, it leaves you wondering, doesn't it?
Definitely.
How is that balancing act fostering innovation versus ensuring responsible use? How's that going to shift in the next few years, and what does that really mean for you listening right now?
It's certainly something to keep thinking about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.